Christmas Q&A time coming at you. Welcome back to the Power Public YouTube channel. As you can tell, the surroundings are a little bit different. We are on location in London. We're over here for the end of the season. We'll be here for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be back into the House of Power. Thanks to everybody that wrote in a question this week on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon. The community is growing every week. We really appreciate everyone sending in their questions for these Q&As. So let's get to it. All right, the first question comes from Tyler Smith, and he's asking what's the difference between the 401, the 401S, and the 401R chassis. Okay, so the difference is mostly cosmetic. The 401 came out in 15 and 16. The 401S was 17 and 18, and the 401R is 19 and 20. You could probably expect a different sticker livery and another letter added onto the 401 in 2021 from the Tony Kart Group. Now the chassis layout hasn't changed since the early 2000s, or the late 2000s, sorry. And the tube layout and diameter is the same, and it's mostly cosmetic changes like the floor tray is new in the 401 this year, and we've got a high grip steering wheel with new stickers, and also the NASA panel, the M7. And the floor tray is actually bolted up a little higher. Someone pointed that out on Instagram as well, so thank you very much for that. Now the 401S was different in the sense that it had a new brake caliper. It's the one piece sort of cast. It's almost the same as the one it's been modeled off the KZ from a few years ago, and it's just been filtered down into the, the 401 model racer kart for us normal guys, not the KZ racers. So they're only slight changes. The chassis are essentially the same, and they just polish every year, a couple little things up, and they still perform excellent on the track. I hope that answered your question. The next question comes from Jake, and he's asking, how do you convert a Junior Max to a Senior Max? Okay, so Rotax is an excellent company. The engines are fantastic, and to upgrade those, you can buy an upgrade kit. It comes with the cylinder, it comes with the power valve assembly, piston and ring, everything you need to update your engine from a Junior Max to a Senior Max. Now you will need to buy extra the black box because it's different between the two on the Evo engine. There's a Junior Max one, and then there's the other one for the DD2, the Senior Max, and the Micro Maxes. So the Junior Max has its own. So you will have to buy that as well. But the parts all bolt on, nice and easy. Do it when you come in to do an engine rebuild. It's hard. It is a little bit more expensive than your traditional top end rebuild, but it's not as labour intensive because the parts just bolt on nice and easy. Okay, the next question comes from Illy GH, and he's asking what brake technique to use, and he's racing a Rotax. Okay, so with braking, obviously if you're only new, you need to really go and practice braking it like a boss. We've got a tutorial series that we cover this in depth, so you can check that out if you go to our website www.powerpublic.com.au. Otherwise, you can just go to your track and really just practice different things. Practice braking deeper and deeper into the braking zones on your hairpin corners until you hit the dirt on the exit of the corner, and then you've found the limit and you can't actually control the kart anymore. And then you need to bring the braking marker back a little bit. Other than that, you can practice with your friends or another sparring partner on the circuit, so you can practice overtaking braking, where you slide it into the overtaking zone and brake a little bit later, but still keep it controlled. You're not being too reactive. Other ways you can do is you can use the brake and the accelerator at the same time. It's not what I recommend to do, but there is instances that you will need to use that. And then another thing you can do is trail braking, where you brake it down to the apex with slightly less brake pressure every time. It requires practice because it's an experience thing. I can't tell you about it. You need to go out and actually practice it yourself. I can tell you the theory, but you really need to do the practice. So go to your track and practice a lot. And the braking technique you use for Rotax is almost the same as every other go-kart. You've got to brake hard and late and do it as effectively as possible over the shortest amount of distance, with still maintaining your corner speeds relative to your competitors, so you dominate on them and not them on you. Okay, if you're liking these videos, please consider subscribing and turning on those pesky notifications. The next question comes from Joetown, and he's asking, do the Jekko seats go in the same spot as the traditional Tony Kart seat? And what I'd say is I don't know if you change the seating position because of the rigidity of the Jekko compared to the Tony Kart. The Jekkos that I'm going to be getting next year to put in our Tony Kart for the factory, we're going to start in the exact same position relative to where we'd stick our Tony Kart seat. Now, Mitchell, the guy that drives the kart the most, he's very tall. He's 6'2" or 180 odd centimeters, and we've got to set the seat back for him anyway, just so he'll fit in the kart because he's got very long legs and they hit the steering wheel. So we extend the kart as much as we can just to fit the driver into the chassis anyway. But for me, I'm 5'11", 75 kilos. What I'd do is I'd set the seat up pretty similar. I mean, you can't move them too much anyway because you'll hit the fuel tank with the front of the seat, so you can't move them very far forward. And then you can't move them too far back because they'll start to foul on the engine side seat stay. So they almost go in the same spot, the one that I have done. But watch this space. We'll be fitting one up next year. We'll probably do a video on it and break it down. So stay tuned in early in 2020 where we fit a Jekko seat to a Tony Kart for our next year's demo kart. Alright, the next question comes from Arangela Yala. And they're new to karting. They want to know what to do to their Rotax in the off-season to get it ready for next year's racing in 2020. What I would suggest to do is to change your chain and your sprockets, front and rear. Take that clutch off and re-lube the bearing. Also too, you can do a fuel pump kit, air filter wash. You could also take the carburetor off, clean out all the petrol and oil with some carby cleaner and put it back on the go-kart dry. And you could drain out all the petrol out of the petrol tank. And then before you're about to use it in the first race of next year, just bleed your brake system so it's super fresh brake fluid ready to hit the track. And that should get you out of trouble. Alright, the next question comes from Ivan, and he's asking, are we going to do more videos on the X30? Now, we will do more videos on the X30. Is there anything in particular you're wanting? Please leave that in the comment section below. We'll probably have an X30 to run next year on one of our demo karts, just for a bit of fun. They're an excellent engine. They're really easy to use. We do have a lot of videos already on X30s on the gearbox oil, the balance gears, the upgrade kits. So you check those out. Leave some comments down below with some suggestions of what you need to know about your X30 and I'll get straight to it. Okay, so the next question comes from Enzo Racing and he's asking, what's the fastest way to go through a corner in the rain? Enzo, whether you're on wet or whether you're on slicks, it's going to differ a little bit. One, you're going to be a bit narrower, one, you're going to be a lot wider. But you really just got to experiment as you go around the track. And generally, the racing line in the dry is going to have the rubber laid down on it. So on a slow corner like a hairpin or a 90-degree corner where you've got to lift off the throttle for ages, you're probably going to get a fair bit of understeer on the rubber. And if you can't jump the curbs and you've got to go around the corner, you're going to have to just steer clear of the racing line, the dry racing line where the rubber is. So you can either go wide of it and drive around the outside of the corner, or you can come in shallow and try to cross the rubber at 90 degrees. That's probably the fastest way to get through a corner in the wet. The next question comes from Alex, and he's asking how to configure a go-kart for someone who's 184 centimeters tall. Now that's easy. If you're very tall, you're just going to have to set the seat back in the kart as far as you can so that you're comfortable. Lift the steering column up as high as you can and move the pedals as forward as you can so that when you've got full throttle, the pedal is very close to the front crash bar. And obviously you don't want to make sure that the brake pedal is not crashing into the front crash bar because you don't want to lose your brakes. So you need to put the brake pedal as far forward as you can so that you're still short of the front crash bar at full brake pressure. This way you're going to fit in the kart and then you can adjust the chassis around you. The chassis adjustments are pretty straightforward. You're going to run the rear wheels out at 1400, like the full width wheel to wheel. That way you're going to have the most stability for the height that you are. And then you can just change your axle hubs and your axle grade to suit the conditions of the day and the circuit that you are at. Okay, so the next question comes from Karting Forum. And they're asking when are we going to start posting some of our videos on their forum. And yeah, shout out to the guys at the Karting Forum UK. Head on over to everybody that's in the UK racing karts and check out some of our videos and all their content on Karting Forums. Okay, so the next question comes from RC Fun. And they're asking, how much does it cost to race a go-kart? So when you consider all your maintenance, tyres, chains, sprockets, fuel, oil, everything, engine maintenance, entry fees, I tell guys to budget for between 500 to 600 Australian dollars per race. So to say you've got a 10 race series at your local club, so your club championship, you've got 10 times 600, so it's about 6,000 Australian dollars you need to budget in running costs, plus anything that you want to buy, like your snipers, a new kart, new engine, stuff like that, new microns. So anything that you want to update, you need to add them in as extras, but your running costs for your standard club days are about $500 to $600. And that should get you started as a new guy. Okay, so the next question comes from Thomas. He's asking, is there a way to do a wheel alignment without all the necessary tools? Look, Thomas, you can get a wheel alignment done. You can eyeball it. You can use a tape measure across the front, measure front to rear. You can use some string line. You're still going to need a tape measure and maybe a ruler. But realistically, save up your money, get yourself a set of lasers. The sniper laser line is about $400 in Australia. It's the best money you'll spend. It's going to save you so much time. And make sure your wheels are lined perfect first time, every time. That's my advice. Thomas also has a second question about his Rotax engine not starting, and it's an Evo from 2018, and he's already replaced the starter button. Now, Thomas, there is a little bit of problems with that. Those starter buttons can be a little problematic from time to time. Now, if you have already replaced it, I wouldn't imagine that the starter button, I'd probably think something to do in the harness with the pins. So maybe go and check all your connections, make sure any of the small wires in the multi-pin plugs haven't come loose. Just by grabbing a pair of pointy nose pliers, grabbing the wire and pushing it into the plug and making sure that all the little pins are home in their sockets. Sometimes they can just push back a little bit and the engine won't start. I'm assuming the engine's still cranking. If the engine's not cranking at all, it's something to do with the solenoid or the start button over on the battery box. But if the engine's cranking and it won't start, there could be a loose connection and you're just breaking down the spark / firing of the engine. Try those things. If you have any more problems, just send us a DM and maybe some pictures, and I'll try to fix that problem for you. Okay, so the next question comes from Jep Switty, and he's asking about his Rotax Evo, what he should do in the winter to get it ready for next season. Now, we have just already covered that for another guy already from Angela earlier today, so hopefully that answered your question too. Okay, so the next question comes from Josh, and he's asking how much it would cost to do a season with a KT100J. It's an older style 100cc Yamaha engine for those guys that don't know. Now, we do use those engines here in Australia, and we have done for, I guess, 30 odd years. They're reliable as, and they're fun to race. They're not very fast under acceleration. They don't have a lot of power, but they're good close racing. It's super fun. If you've got a small club day and you love racing J's and there's heaps of guys with them, get one. You don't have to rebuild it. If you run a control tyre, you can buy one set of tyres. You're probably just going to have to pay your nomination fees. They don't chew through chains and sprockets because they've got no power. And you don't chew through tyres because it's a control tyre like an SL. It lasts all year. Yes, it's not as good as a brand new tyre, but you're trying to do it on a budget. You don't have to maintain the engines as much. Maybe just to keep your eye on the chain and sprocket, put a new one on it halfway through the year. And that's about it. To try to estimate the cost, I'm thinking maybe $2,000 for the full year. Cheap as. Go for it if you guys are racing them at your club. Okay, so the next question comes from Gilles, and he's asking what length axle is the best to run for a Briggs 206. He's currently running 1,000mm axle. Now, Gilles, I haven't run a Briggs 206, but I'm assuming it's a 4-stroke engine from what I know, and also too they're running on a controlled tyre. Some guys do get away with the shorter axles, like the 960mm ones. So you could just get an angle grinder and cut 20mm off each end of your axle and test that out. Our guys here in Australia, they run 30mm axles for the SL tyres with a lot of success, like I was just talking about in the previous question about the J racing. So they run an SL tyre as well. It's probably similar performance to a Briggs 206 or a low horsepower 4-stroke air-cooled engine. And yeah, you could get away with a 960mm axle, but I guess from my experience, I mean, axle changes are not going to change your lap times 5 seconds. It's going to be the last couple of tenths. So put them in, take them out, put them in, take them out, do your research, do your practice, and get back to me, because I haven't done that specific test myself. Okay, so that's all we got time for today. Thanks to everybody that wrote in. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing that and turning on those pesky notifications. You can follow us on Instagram at Power Republic, or go to our amazing website www.powerrepublic.com.au and grab yourself a t-shirt. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Is that okay? Thanks to everybody that wrote in a question this week on Instagram, Facebook, Stall. Alright, that's it. Thanks for everybody that wrote in this week. We can go to our fantastic website www.powerrepublic.com.au, grab yourself a t-shirt, which I'm not wearing. Grab yourself a t-shirt or a brand new something or another. While you did I say change your sprocket? Change your sprocket, I didn't know. Okay, the next question comes from Thomas, and the freaking lights are going flat again. Okay, the next question comes from Enzo Racing, and he's asking about what's the fastest way to go through a corner in the rain. Well, obviously it's to not brake at all and hold the accelerator down at full throttle and cut the corner, and that's the fastest way you'll go through it. You might not make it out the other side.